My name is Abir Ali, and I am a co-owner and creative director with Sandifer. Sandifer is a design studio and workshop, and we specialize in handcrafted furniture. We always say to people, design is one part, and fabrication or manufacturing or craft is another part. So what makes us special is that the design and the craft are married to each other. We are a husband-wife team. We've got this ability to design very well together. Everything is made to order. We're not just making a beautiful piece, we're always really focused on how to make a smart piece as well. Our biggest challenge has really been trying to figure out how to grow. We're trying to understand how do you take that model and make it fit with the culture you want, keep the integrity of the product, but also make it as profitable as possible.
Chip George, we are a design company that has manufacturing, and we create cool products that sell for a great value. While we were at Hope College, came up with the idea for a giant beanbag chair that we call the poof chair. We always said, it's like, this is the most comfortable chair I've ever sat in. Why wouldn't everybody have these? And that was kind of why we started it. It's like we should make these and sell them to everybody. I think that we've probably evolved 20 different times. We started out in a barn, and like the first few chairs we tried to sell with like a home singer sewing machine. We were no seamstresses. We kind of started out with, and I'll say innovation, coming up with a better way to make a beanbag chair to, now we're making real furniture. Everything that we do, we try to have say that, hey, what's a better way to do this? We now say that we're a product development company. We're pretty good at design, and we're pretty good at how can we make this better, and it's kind of part of that finding a better way. One of our mottos is comfort for all. Why do you have to pay more to have great furniture? And I think where we try to focus is making things that everybody can afford.
My name is Carl Winans. I'm the co-founder of Megatiny Corporation. Megatiny is a company focused on improving existing products that we use every day. I had an idea for a product, a new iPhone case, and from that I decided to build a company around it where we would focus on making experiences and products just a little bit better. I decided I wanted to surround myself with talented people and build companies here in Michigan that can help me bring those ideas to life. If I can do that and provide jobs for people, then it's definitely a win-win. With all of my companies, it's about continuous improvement. We're already working on what the next version is going to be, how it's going to be better, how we support our customers, how we talk to our customers, how we engage them. The continuous improvement, it's like there will be constant change.
Welcome to the stage our moderator, M. Roy Wilson, President, Wayne State University.
Well, good morning, everyone. Great stories. So first of all, let me start off by thanking you, Abir and Chip and Carl, for being here today. All of you have great stories. Let me start off by just setting some context here. The business leader for Michigan is made up of some of the largest companies in Michigan. And yet, each of us, for the most part, are very interested in entrepreneurship and supporting entrepreneurship. And the BLM in general has supported many entrepreneurship initiatives, including launching the Detroit Creative Corridor Center, sponsoring the Accelerate Michigan Innovation Competition, and creating the Renaissance Venture Capital Fund. And I understand that some of you are affiliated with one or more of these organizations, so thank you for that. Now, in terms of the university partners, there are 3 universities as part of BLM, Wayne State and Michigan State and University of Michigan, and all of us have business accelerators and other mini programs to support, educate, and train entrepreneurship and innovation. I think that we can all agree that supporting and nurturing the next generation of entrepreneurs is going to be very important for the future of Detroit, for the continued revitalization of Detroit, and also for the economic development of Michigan more generally. So let's go ahead and get started. And I'm going to ask each of you a softball question. Okay. So we'll start off with Abir and then go to Chip and Carl. You each have great stories. Tell us a little bit about how you got started.
So
actually, we are architects by training. Ollie Sandifer is this very small husband-wife team, and I have to say that this context today is really interesting for us because when I say small, I mean small. There are two of us, a handful of subcontractors, 1,000 square feet of shop space, equipment, and then us doing what we do. So when we got started, we were actually professionally trained in architecture, both of us. We were in the design field. We were from Michigan. I'm from the east side of the state in Detroit, born and raised. My husband's from Grand Rapids, born and raised. And when we came out of school, we were kind of contending with Detroit and the region and how we find jobs there. And so the one thing that we did know is that we were really passionate about design, craft, scale, and we thought you don't have to wait for the development of a building to achieve those things. You can really start to get your hands dirty and experimenting on the scale of furniture. And so that's really how we got started. We just took that love that we had for design and that language of design and said, let's just start building stuff and seeing what happens. So it was very experimental the way we started.
Chip?
I was in college, came up with the idea for a giant beanbag. There's one out in the lobby if you want to check it out. Came up with a way to cut and sew it. Started making the first ones ourselves. My mom actually sewed the first 10. We tried and it didn't really work well. Found out that sewing is a great skill that we did not have, my partner and I. So we moved on, went through the phone book and saw that there is a contract manufacturing, contract sewing, and it was like this was a great revelation that we had. We went to go check out this factory, that one of the 10 that were in the phone book, and we watched them sew a strip this much long in about 2 seconds, which would have taken us a half hour. So I was like, well, we can cross that off. They came back with a price that was right for us. Figured out a way to shred foam. We bought a 16-horse chipper shredder, the same kind that would shred up bark and things. Found out that shredded the foam. Found suppliers. Actually bought our first fabric from the Herman Miller and Hayworth factory outlets. So they had extra rolls and things that we could buy for a great price. Went around to different colleges during welcome weeks. That was kind of we'd go to Michigan, Michigan State, Hope, Northwestern, Loyola, go around places that we could drive to and sell somewhere between 10 and 100 chairs when we would go there. And that kind of put us into business, but still a short period of time. School starts starting in the beginning of August, middle of August, and run to maybe the first part of October. So it was a short selling season. We opened up a store during the holiday season. We had pretty good success there. Moved on and found that we got into, we started getting into stores. The futon industry was in the early 2000s, late 90s, was a great venue for us to sell to. They were dying for new products, so we started getting our products in there. Had an opportunity with Meyer. A friend of mine, his dad was a store director for the East Lansing Meyer, and he said, hey, I could sell these. He brought one home one day, and I could sell one of these. I got 50 into their stores, and they sold 50 in 8 days, and this is just after Welcome Week had started, so Michigan State's campus is there, but we still had great sell-through after this Welcome Week. Bought another 50, sold them in 12 days, another 50, sold them in 18 days, so suddenly the buyer that was buying there said, well, come up with one that I can retail for $50. So we did that, and it became a great selling in Myers. We kept expanding both our product line as well as our distribution, and here we are today.
Well, thank you. Carl?
So most of my career thus far, I've started companies that played more in the digital space, and I had a real appreciation for good design. And so for me, I was really interested in physical products and kind of experimenting in that space. So I spent some time just thinking about what types of products I'd like to create. And Mega Tiny is a relatively new company. Really, it was formed out of the intersection between a really simple idea and kind of a cultural phenomenon. So that cultural phenomenon is the digital devices that we have in our pockets, and more specifically, the photos that we take. Over 5 billion photos are taken every week. And then obviously the whole selfie cultural phenomenon. And then the simple idea was just applying some nanosuction material to the back of a phone case that allows you to stick this case to any smooth, flat surface. So if you wanted to take a hands-free selfie, or you wanted to have a recipe up on your kitchen cabinet, or maybe while you're shaving, you're watching ESPN on the bathroom mirror, or I stick it on my computer screen while I work. So it was just a matter of looking at a simple idea and applying it to a cultural phenomenon, and just enhancing the way people use the devices that they use every day. And so we knew from that we probably had a home run on our hands. And so we decided to approach this on Kickstarter and leverage Kickstarter. So our goal was to raise $25,000. We raised $160 in 30 days. And so we knew we had a product that there was a good market fit for that particular product. And we felt really confident kind of going forward.
Now, Abir, I know you met your husband in school at the University of Michigan, and then we lost you both for a while. You went to Chicago. What brought you back?
So you did lose us. We were part of a mass exodus. As many Detroit students, graduates go to Chicago, we eventually went there. And I did have a pit stop in Toronto, so just to kind of give you the geography of the region. And so I'd spent time in two very beautiful cities. And I could say that after 6 years in Chicago, my heart was still in Detroit, and quite frankly, it did not feel like home. And so after getting our feet wet in kind of the fabrication world and architecture world, we said, let's start to look at Detroit again. What's going on in Detroit? And this was 4 years ago, and so quite by accident, I stumbled on an ad for the Detroit Revitalization Fellows, a Wayne State program, and it was the first cohort that they were putting together. And so I said, hey, let's try, what the heck? And applied as an architect, and then got through the process, was awarded the fellowship, and came back to Detroit via philanthropy. So it was a really interesting return back home at, I think, a very critical time. Like 4 years ago, we've seen so much change in 4 years. Not only did we move here, we also moved 3 kids here. We live here in the city. So to see the evolution over the course of 4 years was really incredible. And to come in through a sort of a curated network through the Detroit Revitalization Fellows was just a slam dunk. I mean, it was so valuable. And so even now, 2 years after the fellowship has ended, it's really created this kind of community and this culture around revitalization in Detroit.
Well, we're also pleased to have you back, and I'm glad that the Detroit Revitalization Fellows is doing some positive things. I didn't realize that. Chip, I remember when I was in med school, I had a beanbag chair. I'm still fond of it. It was a red beanbag chair. But, a lot of us did. What's so special about yours, and why did it take off in such a way? How do you attribute the success of it so quickly?
Well, to say it was so quickly, I mean, somebody said the other day that we're a 20-year overnight success. So there was starting in the early mid-90s till now. Our first one, we look at, there was a time when everybody sat on a rock, right? There was no men's sofas, and then we came up with our foof chair, which was filled with shredded foam, and I was like, this is the most comfortable thing I've ever sat in. Why wouldn't everybody have these? So, we started there, and then we got into regular beanbags 5-7 years later, just to be able to hit a better price point. We took that and said, well, we can actually make furniture. And a lot of people say, hey, you make beanbags, and it's actually we make furniture that happens to be filled with beans, and we can hit price points that you can't do using wood or using other materials.
I see. Now, Carl, you're kind of a serial entrepreneur. I recall reading in your bio that you were doing things in entrepreneurship while you were at school at Michigan State rather than going to class. And I know President Simon's out there somewhere. I'm not sure how she feels about that, but it is in your bio that that's what you were doing instead of going to class. Several of us in this room just came back from Israel. There's a number of CEOs went to Israel to find out what's going on there that is in entrepreneurship and innovation that makes them so successful, and what could be imported back to Michigan. And one of the things that we found out is that they have a different attitude toward failure, that they're not afraid to fail, and in fact, they expect to fail. What is the role of failure in your personal experience?
I try to fail as fast as possible. Um, and I've plenty of failures, and I'll decide that it's a failure myself. I don't even necessarily let the market decide. I was working on a startup, an idea that I had in the shower, to turn T-shirts into coupons. So you would be like a wearable, reusable coupon, and I want to call it Shirt Mob. And you could go to a venue, and if you're wearing the shirt, you would get a discount. And so I went and met with the investors of Groupon, Light Bank in Chicago, and had a great meeting. And then they gave me a tour of Groupon, and I saw like 2 floors, like the size of a Walmart. And it was filled with salespeople. And I realized in that moment that this is not the kind of company I want to build. And the challenges that I saw with Shirt Mob in terms of building that type of sales force, and I quickly realized that this is not the kind of company I want to build. This is not something I would personally enjoy. Maybe the idea has legs, but it's not for me. And I went back, and the very next day, I killed it. And to me, that wasn't a failure, because I saved myself so much time and effort, and just from that quick realization. So to me, it's you fail as quickly as possible, do it on your own terms, and move on, because there's plenty of ideas. The execution obviously is the hardest part, so focus on that.
Great. Abir, you've got a great product. It's handcrafted, very nicely designed, and probably after this appearance, you're probably going to have more orders than you can deal with. Okay? So how are you going to be able to balance the desire to keep it a handcrafted product that you put so much into versus really scaling it, making it more automated, and translating perhaps into greater profit? I know that must be a tension that you're experiencing.
Yeah, this is, I think this is our biggest growing pain right now, is we're really, we've done things the way we've done things for the last few years. And, I like to say that we have a really high quality product, but we have gotten there through very modest means. And so when you start to think of growth, those modest means and that high quality product really kind of need to start being on the same platform to operate more efficiently. And so we often say, how do we grow this business without losing the soul of what we do? And when we talk about the soul of what we do, it's that personal touch. It's that handcraft. It's also that intimacy in the way we operate, with design and craft being side by side. So these are questions that we're actively working through, quite honestly. What we do know is we do feel there are possibilities. I think that there is a way that we can operate that's very much tied into the space we operate in, that will allow us to streamline what we do a little bit more without losing that quality of handcraft. And we can tool up in different ways. And so these are things that we're actively trying to figure out right now, and really critical, I'd say, for the way we grow, because we don't ever want to lose that handcraft quality. We don't ever want to lose that intimacy in the way we operate. We're actually we're looking forward to growing at the right size for us. And we recognize we're not manufacturers. We're making things, but in a very different way. And so these questions about scaling up, this is something we want to actively figure out right now. And so we're asking ourselves all these questions, and we're pretty sure we can get there, but it's just a matter of talking to enough kind of smart people, experienced people to get there.
So Chip and Carl, I'm going to ask you the same question. Okay. So what's the most important piece of advice you can give to someone who's interested in starting their own company?
Sure. For me, it's about staying focused and trying to remove distractions, trying to think about, one, what makes you personally happy, and trying not to drown in the bathtub of opportunity and distraction. So for me, in 2014, I made a conscious decision to focus on creation over consumption. I was spending way too much time reading articles and trying to learn everything I could, because someday I might need to know this. Knowledge is at our fingertips. We can get it when we need it. It's pretty much almost on demand. you get wisdom from the experience of actually doing. So once I made a conscious decision to value creation over consumption, then everything just took off like a rocket ship, and productivity just took off.
Right.
I think a lot of it is just to start, right? Everybody's got these ideas that, this was a great idea, I should have done that, and then you see it out in the marketplace 5 years later. So, just getting started, and how do you start slowly, maybe? How can I test the waters to kind of prove it out, the way that you did? I just got it out there, and, hey, people wanted it, so I made some more, and it kind of snowballs into that. And the other one is, I always say, is ask people. There's a whole room of people here that, most people want to help in some way. They might not have a lot of time, but, hey, can I get lunch? Can I do this? Going back, went to Hope College, Bill Curry was the CEO of Universal Forest Products at the time. We were in the same fraternity, and he had lunch with me, and then he made Universal's vice president of marketing available to us, where, again, people want to help. Vice president of marketing spent a half day saying things that we should do and why we should do them, and it's like, here's somebody with some experience that wants to help. And we've learned a lot of hard lessons along the way, but if you can take some of those lessons out and not learn them the hard way, take some of that advice.
Well, we only have about 4 more minutes left, so let me ask one more question of each of you. As I mentioned, several of us, well, about 35 of us actually went to Israel and just got back this past weekend. And we really want to know what we can do, what can be done here in Detroit and in Michigan to better support entrepreneurs. And obviously Israel is a different country, it has a different culture, but there are also policy issues that are different that is really helping to catalyze innovation and entrepreneurship in Israel. What do you think is the one single thing that the state of Michigan can do to help start up businesses here in Michigan? The one thing that they could do. So, Abir, let's start with you.
I thought you were going to stress that one thing. For me and the type of business we run, because it's oriented in design, Michigan has this unbelievable history of design and furniture, and I think that there is a lot going on in Detroit in that arena as well, and so anything that can be done to really kind of elevate that voice in the state. And I know, the Detroit Creative Corridor Center is working to do that, as are a few other people from big scale to large scale. But really our history is rooted in the state of Michigan. And it goes back in time. And so anything that we can kind of do to elevate these businesses, I think, to connect it to that past and the present, regardless of how small you are or how big you are, I think is an opportunity that's really unique to Michigan. And to figure out how to start to invest in those companies and partner with those companies. That's something that I'm really interested in with the field specifically and the scale we're working in.
I think just make things easier. Like sometimes working with the government, it's intimidating to people. Hey, I've got to go in, and even just getting a business license. Like, how do you make that process easier? There's obviously things that you can pay for to get this through. My wife started a company a few years ago, and some of just even the simple questions. I was like, I don't remember that, and she would ask, where do you get this information? And I was like, we did it 20 years ago. I don't really remember where we did that, but it's still like, as I helped her through this process and we worked through it together, it wasn't necessarily easy. Like just to have some of these answers online seems like something that would be easy to do.
Yeah. Okay. Carl?
For me, it comes down to an educated workforce in terms of early education for the students that we have here, training training to shift skills to needed the needed skills for the businesses here in Michigan, and making an attractive place for talent to come to Michigan from all over the world. My other firm is a design firm. We need technical people, developers, and we are fighting. As a small company, it's very important that we hire just the best people, because we're small. We need to have a small group of the best people, and we're all fighting over the best people. There's a lot of developers, but there's not a lot of great developers. So really focusing on that education piece, to me, I think is important, having a talented workforce.
One last, very quick question. Start with you, Carl. What's next for you?
I'm working on a book, like everybody, about creation over consumption and how to leverage the tools to build and sell your ideas.
Great. Chip?
We've started a new line of furniture that looks more like real upholstery furniture. We call it Aura, and just branding it and continuing to sell to kind of our current customers and expanding the customers to new customers.
Good luck with that.
Thanks.
Abir?
Space, we're working on finding a new home in 2016. Right now we're working out of the Russell Industrial Center, and I think we need to be in a spot that's really going to support the culture that we want to create.
Thank all three of you. Really, really interesting. I can continue on and on, but I think we're out of time. I just want to thank you very much for being here and sharing your stories with us. Thank you very much.